When I look out into this crowd, I can tell that the spirit of July 4th, 1777 is alive and well. At the original Tea Party in 1773, a group of patriots tossed the British tax tea into Boston Harbor in protest of the Tea Act. Now, the Tea Act would have resulted in a relatively insignificant amount of tax. In fact, the American Revolution was fought over tax rates of less than 3%. Yet today we find ourselves 200 years later, and the average American works for 6 months out of every year to pay the combined federal, state, and local taxes. Ladies and gentlemen, the participants of the original Tea Party and the founders of this country would be ashamed of us for what we're putting up with. And even though we're taxed at unbelievable levels, the federal government finds ways to spend all of this money and then some. Now, the customary response by most Americans is, well, our kids are going to pay for it. And while this is true in some respects, this ignores one of the most significant consequences of our current monetary system: inflation. Inflation is the direct result of a central banking system that operates with mere paper as the reserve, rather than a hard commodity that cannot be printed. While direct taxes are unpopular, the federal government can fund deficit spending by taxing through inflation, and most people do not recognize the increase in the price of goods for what it really is: a hidden tax. But more than just a tax, paper currency can also result in runaway inflation, as experienced by the Founding Fathers during the Revolution with the Continental dollar. The founders lived through having worthless paper currency, and that is why in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, they said only Congress has the authority to coin money and regulate the value thereof, with the intention that silver or gold be used as the reserve. Our fellow Tennessean and former President Andrew Jackson understood the dangers of central banking, paper money, and the national debt, and he eradicated all three during his presidency. But it would make Old Hickory sad to know that we have allowed our current central bank, the Federal Reserve System, to control and debase our currency and centrally plan our economy for over 100 years. Today, the Fed is printing money at an astounding rate and robbing your purchasing power in the process. They were the key lobbyists for the $840 billion banking bailout bill. While this number is staggering, the Fed has made loans directly to banking institutions in excess of $2 trillion and has refused to tell Congress or the American people the recipients of these funds. And now what is this we hear? They're requesting more authority over our economy and more powers? Many of us think it's time for the Fed to be held accountable to the people and properly restrained by the Constitution. And here's the good news. There's a majority in the U.S. House of Representatives that feel the same way, 246 to be exact, and have co-sponsored legislation that would submit the Fed to a full, unobstructed audit by the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, which is the investigative arm of Congress, for the first time in history. H.R. 1207, the Federal Reserve Transparency Act, is a simple bill that can fit on one page. One page, not 1,200. And it removes the current restrictions that exist on Congress' ability to audit the Fed. The Tennesseans for Liberty are here to collecting signatures, and we would appreciate your support in this effort. The only way we can preserve our liberties on all fronts that we're talking about today is for each and every one of us to get involved and encourage others to do so. Samuel Adams says it does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority, keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. Ladies and gentlemen, let's start that fire. Let's demand an audit of the Fed and sign the petition for H.R. 1207. Thank you very much.